Welcome back to the Roadrunner Diamond Report. We're here for episode number 7 to recap the Texas State UTSA game. Roadrunners take it on the chin tonight, losing to Texas State. Final score of 7-2. Not the prettiest game from UTSA, but let's go over a couple of key facts and what led to this kind of 7-2 final. So in the beginning of the game, Drew Detlefsen, UTSA starts off kind of not hot, but Drew Detlefsen gets a single, 5-game hitting streak. He's on fire. But the one thing that was noticeable, and it was a theme throughout the game, to be honest with you, UTSA was not disciplined at all at the plate tonight. They have been all season, but they had an off game. You could tell that they were being extremely aggressive, hacking at pitches, chasing pitches, and it basically led to their demise. So UTSA had 14 strikeouts to only 1 walk offensively today. Those are terrible numbers. We know that. But what's alarming is this UTSA team has been getting on base and they have been cashing in on those opportunities. It just didn't happen tonight. And a lot of that, I thought that they were a little juiced up for the game, being aggressive, swinging at a lot of pitches outside of the strike zone, and it came back to haunt them. You got to give credit to Texas State. We thought that their starting pitcher, at least I did, was going to have a rough night, but he began the game and was pretty solid and gave a strong performance for the Bobcats. They got out to a quick 2-0 lead against UTSA, and it was pretty much it from there. UTSA did have some opportunities, like in the bottom of the second inning. Christian Hallmark gets a single, steals third, but they aren't able to bring him home. Something else to look at from this UTSA game was they were 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position, 0.143%, about 14%, not good whatsoever for UTSA. And they also stranded 6 runners on base. They didn't cash in on those opportunities when they had a player in position to score. So all of that kind of led up to a poor offensive night for UTSA. And we get to the bottom of the second inning. Texas State hits a 2-run home run, 4-0, and not much else happened offensively for the Roadrunners in the third inning. They had another opportunity to get some runs going, get some momentum going in the top of the fourth inning. They had 2 men on, no outs, and that's when UTSA hit a shot deep to, I believe it was right center field, and Coach Hallmark brought the runner to tag up from second to third, and Texas State just had a perfect relay throw out the runner at third. We talked about it on Sunday night that Hallmark usually is aggressive and is going to be aggressive at third base, and I don't really have a problem with that, especially with the way Texas State came out offensively. They were red hot offensively and on the mound, so UTSA needed some sort of spark. Did it come back to haunt them a little bit? But hindsight, it's 2020. I thought it was, I really didn't have a problem with him tagging right there. There was a chance, bang, bang play. It was just a perfect defensive play from Texas State. And something that we saw from the Bobcats throughout the game, they made us, except for their center fielder who had a couple drops deep center field, Jackson Cotton. Other than that, the infield and the relay throws were pristine from the Bobcats and really kept UTSA out of this game. They didn't make any mistakes. They didn't make any mistakes in the field. And on the pitching mound, again, only surrendering 1 walk to this red-hot UTSA offense. So after that, after the runner gets tagged out at third, no runs come across from UTSA, and it's still 4-0. Nothing really happens, but again, Texas State tacks on 2 more runs at the bottom of the 5th. And then top of the 6th, UTSA finally on the board, thanks to Drew Detlefsen's home run to, I believe it was left field. And then right after, with no outs, Lane gets a double. So right there, we're kind of feeling like, okay, now this is the spark this offense has been needing. But once again, runners left on base, no luck bringing these guys in. Again, runners in scoring position, 14% for UTSA, no bueno. All right, not good. Bottom of the 6th, Qualia is in the game. A pretty clean game from Qualia and Gutierrez. I forgot who else pitched at the very end. But nothing, nothing happened in the seventh inning. And then Texas State again, bottom of the seventh inning, gets a home run. Top of the eighth, UTSA still tries to get some momentum. Caden Miller gets a single. Hawthorne gets a double. Miller comes in at home. He kind of he was called out, but the camera had a perfect view on the umpire. Umpire kind of knew he messed up. Caden Miller was kind of pissed off about it, kind of mouthed something at the umpire. No big deal. They overturned the call. He's safe at home. UTSA gets their second run of the game, but nothing else doing for the Roadrunners. And they get a nice double play in the defensive inning in the bottom of the eighth. And that was it for UTSA. They end up taking the loss 7-2 against rival Texas State. Bobcats snapped their 3-game losing streak to the Roadrunners. Where do we go from here? Well, so takeaways from this game. Obviously, offensively, we've been talking about it all season. They've been doing great, being disciplined at the plate. Now we saw what can happen if the Roadrunners are not disciplined at the plate. 14 strikeouts to 1 walk. Totally unacceptable for this offense, and they're obviously going to struggle if that happens. And you could clearly see it if you're watching the game. Earlier in the game, UTSA is just not disciplined. They're swinging at everything. They wanted to get some hacks in, get on the board early. Rivalry game. I'm sure these guys were juiced up to play in. Of course, the crowd was hot. So this sort of thing happens. And that was kind of, at least my main takeaway from today. A starting pitcher, Okerholm, he didn't look terrible, but the problem was it looked like he didn't have a lot of, he didn't have a lot of juice on his pitches. He didn't have command of the strike zone, which obviously was a problem. And then, but it didn't look like he had anything fast. It just didn't. It looked like it was a little too easy for Texas State to just get those singles, knock in those easy singles. I think there might have been a double, but I think some singles, and that type of thing happens for pitchers, even at the big league level. Some nights it's just not your night, right? And that happens. I think he'll be fine, but it was just an off night, and he just didn't have a lot of fire behind his pitches, and the command wasn't there. The rest of the bullpen held up. I thought they held up just fine. I believe only surrendering 2, maybe 3 runs to end the game, and one of them, quality. We had 2 freshmen come in, so they're getting pretty good innings recently, and in this game, this is a great experience that will pay off down the road, not only for this season, but their careers hopefully staying at UTSA. I've liked what I've seen from both pitchers so far, and that was my main takeaway. Also, you gotta give credit to Texas State. They didn't make mistakes. Their infield played tremendous. Chase Moore at third base made some plays. Shortstop made some deep throws, and they just did not allow UTSA to get anything going. No momentum, no rally. It was basically the opposite of the Dallas Baptist series, where you see UTSA thriving on every walk, thriving on every strikeout. The energy just wasn't there. It was, I believe, their first road game of the season. So these kind of things happen. It just sucks that it was against rival Texas State. If it was against Houston or Sam Houston State, you kind of just wave it off. You're not going to go undefeated throughout the entire season. So I think this was a good loss for UTSA. It's not a big deal, not going undefeated in college baseball throughout the entire season. This is a perfect time for UTSA to learn, and especially offensively. The pitching, again, the pitching actually had a decent game, especially once the bullpen came in. It was the batting and not being disciplined at the plate. It was extremely glaring, and those that watched the game, it just popped out. You could just tell they're over anxious at the plate, and they've been the complete opposite the entire 7 games to begin this season. So first loss, got it out of the way. Again, I do think it is a good loss so that they are going to now be focused. Not that they wouldn't have been, but I expect the focus to even be there, even more so, heading to Houston against Ohio State, Coastal Carolina, defending national champion Coastal Carolina, and Baylor. I expect them to lock in, and that's pretty much my only, just undisciplined at the plate, over anxious, comes back to bite them. I like the way that the pitching staff kind of bounced back and weathered that storm. They did allow 7 runs, but at the end of the day, the offense has been great to start the season. We know that, and they just had a bad day. it happens, and you just got to move forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they bounce back this weekend. Huge weekend ahead of UTSA, and what can they do? Will they be able to bounce back? I believe they will. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Thank you again for liking, watching, subscribing. We'll see y'all on Friday for the pregame of the weekend series. I'll be doing a pregame because we'll have 3 different opponents. I'm going to do my best to do a preview and recap for each game on the weekend. I should be able to. If not, I'll talk about it on Twitter, of course. But again, thanks for everyone for liking, subscribing, following along on YouTube and Twitter, and we'll see you this weekend.